All right, it's a little bit after 3, so we're going to get started. Thank you everyone so much for attending our monthly webinar. My name is Dana Wilson. I am the Work-Based Learning Section Professional Development Committee Chair. Also on our line from ACTE, we have Kelly Deemer, who's Director of Membership, and Jan Jardine, who is the Work-Based Learning Section Chair. Today's webinar is on tech tools and data analysis in work-based learning. This is our last monthly webinar before our conference coming up in April, so we're very excited to have you all here. As usual, our webinar is sponsored by Transio. Is there a Transio rep on the line who would like to go through?
Hi, Dana. Yes, this is Brandon Schroth. Hi, everyone. Hopefully I'll get to see you guys. I will actually be out in Salt Lake for the ACTE conference as well. So I hope to
turned up.
I'm sorry. So my name is Brandon Schroth. I'm with Transio. As you can see, we're transforming the way you look at student readiness. So what we do in the CTE world here is we actually really help manage the HR processes that you guys deal with on a daily basis through youth apprenticeships. As you can see, I have a lot of background in tech sales. I have about 10 years doing audio video web conferencing, and then I just recently got into frontline education where I helped with HR processes for your admin to really get you guys onboarded. As you can see, I'm a Chicago native as well. I grew up here, diehard sports fan. Finally got to see a Cubs win a World Series not too long ago, so that was really good for us. But if you want to go to the next slide, kind of take a deeper dive on what we do here. So as you can see, we're a little different than most providers. So we were built by educators. We weren't just a software company that kind of got into the education realm. We have a district that we really based out of in Illinois called District 214 that really ran into a lot of these issues when they're scaling out work-based learning. You know, how to manage your business partners outside Excel sheets, how to get your students into the field and not get bogged down with paperwork, you know, trying to use disparate softwares to put this all together and then report on this up the ladder as well. Then next slide, thank you. So on the left side here is something I'm sure you guys do on a daily basis. So this is really what we see as, you know, kind of the continuum here is Transio, everything that really goes into CTE and work-based learning. And on the right side here is all the kind of features we offer in our CTE and Transio jobs platform for the business partner database, managing your training agreements and digitalizing all these processes to give the students not only a visual through badging technology to see their progress in real time, but to give you guys, you know, a tool that can actually scale this out, not have you guys pull in Excel forms, you know, doing DocuSigns, managing these business partners and getting communication between, you know, the different departments to get the students out in the field. So thank you guys for having us. We love sponsoring this and I look forward to meeting a lot of you in Salt Lake. As you can see, we do a lot of other things here. We help with building out those pathways as well. Also manage a college experience, your service hours for the kids as well, and then engage. Something that I think really makes us different here is we can manage all your co-curricular groups, track your attendance, and actually do homecoming voting or prom voting through here to get the students constantly coming back to the platform instead of maybe just using it for one of these features. So that is a little bit on Transio. Thank you guys for jumping on, and I look forward to meeting some of you in person.
Thank you so much, Brandon. We're always so grateful to have Transio as one of our sponsors for not only for these professional development webinars, but also for our work-based learning conference. Thank you. So for today's panel on tech tools and data analysis, we have two presenters. Jason Van Noos from Georgia, who's the Director of Work-Based Learning and Youth Apprenticeship Programs for Lowndes County Schools, and Jim McLeod from Wisconsin, College Career and Experiential Learning Coordinator for Muskegon Norway Schools. So I'm going to hand this over now to Jim. Feel free to take it away.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen here real quick. So as We're seeing my dashboard databases, correct? With the head. Okay. So as we kind of talk about how do you use tech tools to streamline your workforce work-based learning, the things you're doing. I agree 100% kind of what we said with Transio and the things you're doing. How do you streamline that process to identify the things you're doing? We are looking at one of my dashboards here right now, and we're just I'm going to drill down on students' participation by school year. So if you look back in 16, 17 through 18, 19, we averaged, we had about 50 some students that were in a work-based learning program of a school of 1,600 every year. Once we started to brand and market our Connect Academy and our 6 levels of experience, you see a drastic growth in our work-based learning experiences to 120 some odd work-based learning. And then you see in the middle of the pandemic, we stayed steady. We dipped a little bit, but we were still at about 120, right in the same ballpark where we're at. And then now you see experiential growth just jumping up to 163 students this year. A couple things that I correlate this growth to is the tech tools that we use, but then also how do we monitor and manage all of those students in these work-based learning experiences. So I'm going to show you the platform that we use to onboard these students, to gather the information and the data that we need from our students, from our business partners, from our employers, as well as our parents as well. But then how can more than one person help support the workflow? One of the biggest things I will say and encourage everyone to use some type of tech tool to do this is now I do not need to be the only person that registers these students. So we have administrative assistants that can support our students' registration and get them going because of these tech tools. This has really helped us expand and grow our platform. So let's talk a little bit about what we do. We have a student signed up in a work-based learning program. They're in our Infinite Campus system, and they come in September, and we need to start gathering all that information and data. We download all the information from IC and load it into a Qualtrics platform and make a survey to enroll our students. So right now, I'm going to walk you through the registration process of Jimmy's student. Okay. So Jimmy's student's going to stop by the administration office, student services, and they're going to let one of our administrative assistants know, hey, I need to register for my work-based learning program. At that point in time, we would drill down the students, grab who they are, and I already have Jimmy's student for the 21-22 school year, and whoever's registering clicks on that link. And as this pulls up, we have embedded data that's automatically pulled. So we do not need to pull their first name, their last name, their 800 number, their grade, their school year. We pull all that information automatically from our student monitoring platform system so that our data comes through consistently. So we don't have an uppercase J, a lowercase s, so that we put a O instead of a 0 in for our 800 number. So when we need to pull out data and reports, it's all streamlined and uniform for what we have. At this point in time, we talk to our students and verify that they're going to be part of the work-based learning program for all 4 quarters of the school year. And we have that information. Student answers yes to all the above, and we hit next. Now we start finding out where they're working and what they're doing. So we find out that Jimmy's student has a job with a local business working in their accounting department. So they're in the financing career cluster, and we would select that. From there, we need to find out specifically what they're doing. So we find out that they're working in accounting service basics. So now we have a line on the career cluster. We have a line on the pathway of which that job falls under. From there, we have the youth apprenticeship program with the Department of Workforce Development of the state of Wisconsin. So we know that does qualify for a youth apprenticeship option. So then we would qualify this as we saw that the student was a junior, and we talked to them that they're going to be a part of this for 2 years. So they are potentially a level 2 youth apprenticeship student for us. For the district's tracking purpose, we have 2 levels of experience that matter for us, and it's a level 5 or 6. A student tells us that this is a future career that they think they want to go into after high school. That classifies as our district's level 6. And again, that's just data for our end. We identify how many credits the student's going to work. Credits are based off of hours worked. So if a student's working 450 hours on the school year, they're going to be upwards to 2.5 credits for the amount of time spent on the job. We grab their t-shirt sizes right away. The reason we do this is we give our students swag. So we talk about the growth. We are in 2022. If you're not first and foremost, you will be forgotten. So the Connect Academy that's behind me is the brand for our experiential learning programs, the brand for our work-based learning. So we get all of our students a t-shirt, a hoodie, or some type of gear throughout the year with their participation. So we just grab that information on the front end when we register them. So when we order that gear, we're not trying to hunt kids down to figure out what it is. Then we want to know about how did our students hear about the job so we can help inform our practices on the things that we're doing. Could be a personal connection, parent, family, friend. We're completely fine with that. The number one way you find a job is through networking and word of mouth. We have a digital job board that we do in partnership with other local school districts. So are you utilizing our digital job board in finding the jobs that are posted there? Was it a specific relationship with our Connect Academy or conversation with me or another person that's directly guiding the work, or is it another? Once we gather that information, we hit submit. That starts the registration process. Through our system now, we have programmers in our district that have built the surveys to automatically kick out now to our students to start their registration process. So we ask them the standard questions and inform them that this is a work-based learning program in conjunction with the Muskego North School District. You need to be a student first. You cannot skip school to go to work, fill in the blank, and all the other logistics that go through. The students will sign off on each of those things, acknowledging that they understand the guidelines, the parameters of programs, the expectations, how they will be graded, and the different information we will take. At that point in time, when they hit, they will also put it in their employer's work email. Once they are done, the employer and the parents will be sent a registration survey to complete their end of it. So we can then start to progress monitor where our students are at with registration. So Jimmy's student I've used before, but right now this coordinator survey, you see the number 2 on here. So I just started the second survey of Jimmy's student, and we are not completed. The student has not completed their survey yet. The parent has not completed their survey, employer, and then the final one has not been done. So as we are starting to monitor and track, and again, my team of administrative assistants can help monitor this situation, we can start to check in on our students and call Jimmy's student down, like, Jimmy, you have not even started your survey, so therefore your parent and employer will not get their survey. Therefore, right now, all your hours working do not count towards your work-based learning and the credits you are trying to obtain. One of the biggest things that we see here through this system is we can have multiple people with touch points to support the work. So today I spent a lot of time out in the workforce meeting with business partners enrolling. The work didn't stop as we had to call students down, as we had to figure out where they're at. My team could just go to the dashboard and automatically find the missing components to then help support the students to complete and close the gaps of what they needed. Once the process is fully completed, right now I just started Jimmy's student. It would be 22222. We see that he's fully completed and done. This becomes the warehouse of information for various things that we need to have conversations. So there's a problem with the work-based learning sites, or we got to talk to the employer. We just scroll down to the employer data, and right away I got the email, I got the phone number, I got their title, and again, the place of employment, just to double check. I tell my staff often, as we've grown our program, one of the downfalls is I personally do not have the touch points or relationships I've had with our students that I had when we were at 50 some students. We are at 163 students. Somebody has a relationship with one of these students, but when we do have issues or situations that I have to attend to, I have the data and information to grab it right here to talk to our students, talk to our parents, or go over the different things we have. We also can double back in here and make sure, so when we do see that a student is a level 1 youth apprenticeship student, there is other paperwork that needs to be sent to them via the state to register them. This will also inform us and let us know that we need to start that process and start sending the paperwork to them electronically through our links. So there's so many reasons that I think technology is becoming a huge component to the workforce. What's amazing about what we're doing here is when the pandemic hits, our students were able to still continue to work, even though our buildings were shut down. Our business partners allowed our students to work, but what our business partners did not want happening at that time is they didn't want me in their facilities. I was an extra person that wasn't an employee. So how do we get the paperwork? How do we communicate to continue this process? And so this was our answer to that problem. Now we're seeing from our workforce and our employers that we are in a workforce crisis. So they want to support us. They love our students coming in and working for them, but they don't necessarily have time to have the one-on-one meetings that we used to have with myself or other district employees. They've worked with us long enough, and this streamlines the process that it automatically kicks into their email. They answer the questions and identify, and it's sent back to us. Through all these surveys, there's always a question on there. Do you need to set up a meeting with Mr. Micklig? And so if they're good, they say no, and we just get the students working and rocking and rolling. On top of that, the other thing that starts to become very important with registering our students is the data you can start to collect. So now we have our system set up, and how do we start tracking our internships and what they're doing? So back to the initial page with that internship summary. So now we can start having conversations and seeing where our students are participating by grade level. We can start looking at our ethnicity. We can start looking at our special ed population. We can look at total number of students that have participated over the entire time of the program and or drill it down specifically to 1 year. We can start looking at the different levels of experience. Are students just taking jobs, or are they taking jobs that are preparing them for future careers? And how is that better preparing them for their next steps? We can start seeing who our youth apprenticeship students are, as well as start drilling these down to individual career clusters. And as we start working with our academic career planning process, are we providing our students with the right work-based learning opportunities that align to their intended future careers, or is there an area that we need to continue to build? Through this system 4 years ago, I found in our academic career planning process that the number one asked for area for future careers by our population was in the health sciences. When I pulled this data and I looked at our work-based learning experiences, we had, I think, one student in a work-based learning in the health sciences. So that helped guide my work to increase not only the opportunities for our students to get out into the health sciences to find work-based learning experiences, but also how to find exposure in different opportunities to better prepare them for the workforce. I had one last component I wanted to show you. Let me just see if I have it up. And then the other piece that comes into average here is then how do we evaluate? Through that initial registration process, our employers are automatically enrolled into our final evaluations to verify our students' work experience, to verify their hours worked, as well as rate them on 17 categories of employability. We see out of 989 evaluations that's been done to date, our students are averaging 4.0 out of 5 on a scale of 5. We can then start to drill down specifically on those areas. And now we can create targeted mailers and targeted post and digital media campaigns to let our employers know that the top 5 rated areas that our students are performing in is attitude towards coworkers, dependability, honesty, punctuality, attendance, and adaptability. So as I meet with these business partners and they sit there and tell me we cannot get people to show up, I can sit there and tell you, I can't promise you my kids are perfect. They are human, but I can tell you right now at a 989 evaluations, showing up and being at the job site is not a problem from a Muskego Norway School District student. I can tell you that electronic devices interfere with work is a problem. And I can have that open, honest conversation with them. And because we have the data, because we have the facts that start through that registration process, that our employers are a lot more open and willing to work with us to continue that process. I know Jason has a spiel and I could continue to talk probably for the whole time. So I think I'm going to pause there and I'm going to turn it over to Jason so I don't chew up any of his time and he has the opportunity to talk about his amazing tools.
Thank you, Jim. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Van Ness. Let me go ahead and get started, and I will share my screen. All right, so it's really interesting to me, like Jim and I didn't collaborate on this, but it's really interesting to me to see how successful programs are all doing a lot of the same things. They're doing a lot of similar things, and we may be using different tools to do it, but we're collecting data. So I'm going to go pretty quick. I'm going to show you a lot of application things that I've done. When I first started this job or took this job, I didn't have a budget. Heck, I still don't have a budget. So I do a lot of things that have to create my own stuff. So some of you may be in my similar situation. And so I look for free tools. Everything I show you today, except for one thing, is going to be free. And then we'll kind of move forward from there. My contact information is here. It's my personal cell phone number. If you want the slide deck, you can message me after this or email me after this, and I'll give it to you. So here's also another way to connect with me. And then let's go ahead and get started. So why use tech tools? So for me, it's all about data. I use the data to analyze and evaluate. You heard Jim talk a lot about, seeing where there are holes based on his enrollments and work-based learning numbers, and are they aligning? You got a ton of kids in a program and you don't have a lot of work-based learning placements in that program. Where's the disconnect? So analyzing and evaluating is a main reason I use a lot of these tech tools to get this data. But another one is I love to recruit. I love to market my program, and it's a lot easier to do so with actual data versus just anecdotes. Hey, if you did this, this could happen. Where you go in with actual real data and you begin to show your community leaders, your chamber of commerce, your economic development authority, your county commissioners, your mayor, the people who are going to be responsible for helping push this across, those boundaries of normal expectations, getting it out there into the new, unprecedented areas. You need their support. They're not going to do it without data. So I use this to communicate data. Another one is increased administrative efficacy. So using this technology, I can automate a lot of systems. And this is going to sound bad, but we trust ourselves to do our own jobs, right? Sometimes it's hard to let other people do some jobs for us. If you can find a way to automate things, it's kind of like a way of duplicating yourself. You can be in multiple places at one time. And that's one of the reasons I like this, is being able to go in and recruiting. I can automate a recruiting process. So I can go out and be manually recruiting, having a lunch or dinner or doing something with an employer while my students are still applying for the program without me having to be present. Better data and less work is more time out recruiting, building my program. This use of data, it preserves effectiveness in the event of a transfer of leadership. So if I ever were to leave this role and go to another role, I would be able just to hand all this data over, all these things over to the person who takes my spot, and there won't be any loss of data or leadership or loss of data in the event of a transfer of leadership. It's shareable across schools, districts, and states. And Mike's on here, Mike Hassler. He and I are doing a lot of collaboration. Me in South Georgia, him in Utah. I've presented and done similar things with different states and districts. The cool thing about having this is it's transferable. It's free, it's transferable. You can move these things in. And the bottom line is I'm just a nerd. So to me, this is fun. This is fun stuff, being able to go in and look at data, finding holes, analyzing. So let's just go ahead and get into it. The first tool I use is LinkedIn. And this is a big, big deal for me. Again, it's something that's free unless you choose to pay for the premium membership. LinkedIn has a lot of features that can really transform the way you run your program. One, employer relations. I used to send, I still do send handwritten thank you cards to my employers, but I got to thinking, well, what that does have value, but that has value is thanking an employer on LinkedIn in front of all their competitors. And then they're saying, well, dang, why the heck am I not working with this program? And you begin to leverage a simple thank you into a marketing tool because you're doing it publicly, and then that gets posted and reposted and liked and shared and celebrated. And all the people who aren't partnering with you are saying, well, what am I missing? You're kind of whetting their appetite just by thanking someone publicly. So it helps build those employee relationships, and it begins to market. When you post something that's dynamic and it gets a lot of shares, it becomes its own marketing force. That one post becomes its own marketing force. And so that's something that's very important to the way I run my program. Youth apprenticeship tracking, we do a little bit different in Georgia, but this is the best yield of information I've found. People have used Facebook and they've used Twitter and they've used this and this and this. Well, the problem is I don't want to see what my kids are doing on spring break on Facebook, and I can't go check up on them for their youth apprenticeship stuff without seeing all the peripherals. So this eliminates a lot of the peripherals, a lot of the non-pertinent information. It is the best yield of data of specific related work-based learning data that I've found to use, period, bar none, is using LinkedIn to track these. You can set up closed groups, and once students graduate, have them join a 2021-22 youth apprenticeship cohort. And I've got kids based on groups and cohorts I can track and follow and move them around. And it's all pertinent information. There's no drama, if you will, on LinkedIn. Student portfolios, it's active, not passive. You can go in and you can have these students developing a portfolio that when they graduate, it's in the same place. And when I mean active, not passive, you can do it on a Google site. You can do it on a Adobe Spark page. You can do all these really cool tech tools, but then you still have a problem of getting that data, getting that portfolio in front of an employer. If you build it on LinkedIn, that's where the employers already are. So why not put it where the employers already are? It gets rid of one obstacle for getting these kids and these students and their skills noticed. Another one is student training. I'm not going to talk a lot about that. There's a lot of really good articles and content students go out there. You can find it and post it and share it on there that's specifically employability skill related. Student evaluations. This is an idea I got from Mike, and that's having them get endorsed from their employer. What a great evaluation. If their employer is willing to endorse them publicly on LinkedIn, I can count that as an evaluation, but it's also a public endorsement. If I do it just on paper, nobody knows about that but me, the student, and the employer. Why not put it on LinkedIn, make it public, and then celebrate that recommendation for everybody to see? And then student placements. Mike has this really cool story where he talks about he had a student come to him and want a job in meteorology. And he was like, well, what the crap am I supposed to do? I don't have any contacts in meteorology. So he leveraged LinkedIn, went to LinkedIn, said, hey, network, can anybody help me? You got any connections? And it was in a matter of hours, I believe, Mike, hours, maybe days, the young lady was placed and being successful. So he was able to leverage those. So that's tech tool is number one is LinkedIn. Another one that I use is Blue Ink. This is the only thing that's paid. This is the only tool that I have that's a paid tool. And this is what I use. It's a DocuSign alternative. And because I use this, my program not only did not regress, but we actually grew during the pandemic because everything I did was already digitized. It was already kind of out there on the internet and ether, if you will, working on its own. I didn't have to change or do anything else. So I can upload my PDFs there. I can create roles, I can create fields, and I can assign permissions to those. So my employer paperwork, my student paperwork, my parent paperwork and their orientations, all of that, I can create one PDF, use it as a template, and then send that to these students where they can sign certain fields. And I no longer have to worry about incomplete paperwork or missing signatures or getting wad up in their book bag. It's perfect. I can press print, put it in the student's file, and I'm good to go. It's very secure and detailed record. So here's an example of, I've blurred out all the pertinent information, but if a student says, well, I didn't get that link, I can actually pull up that document and say, well, actually I sent it on the 7th and it was opened and you saw it, but you didn't do anything. So I can go in and track everything down to the minutia of holding my students accountable. And I really love that. So that's Blue Ink. I know I'm going fast. I've got a lot of things I'm trying to get us in. I'm sorry. So Google Maps is a really cool feature that I use. This is, again, free. So I use Google Maps to place where my students are placed. I record it where my students are placed. So you can come in, you can see, I'll go to Google Maps, I'll type in, welding fabrication post 1, and I'll open it up. It'll look like this. I'll click the edit button. I'll type in the student's name, all the students who work there. In the notes section, I put the visits, I put the mentor's name, the mentor's contact information. And then here's the cool part. When you have a program as big as mine is, I've got a very large county. It's hard to keep track of who you've already visited. So once I make a visit, I change the color. So I can look at these maps and say, oh gosh, I visited all the yellow, but I still got to go visit those green. I can do it at a real quick glance on a macro level. I can say, wow, boom, go make these kids. And it's also a secondary way of keeping track of where I've done it, when I've done it, how often I visit that student, et cetera, et cetera. So I absolutely love this. I'm not quite a rural county, but we're a very large land area county. So I travel a lot. My school reimburses me for mileage. So I can actually go in here. If I know I've got to visit these 3 people, I can go in and plan a route in Google Maps. It'll give me the best route. I can filter in traffic. It'll allow me to avoid traffic. But also, let's just say up here, I was coming to visit this student right here. Well, if I have a filing cabinet of student placement, I'm probably not going to remember that I've got these students right here as well. But if I can look at my maps, I'm going to visit this student, who else is near them? Oh, let me go ahead and get those 3 students right there. Now I've saved my school system some money. I've been more efficient with my time, and I can do some different things. So a lot of really cool things to use Google Maps for. Posting a job board for, like I think Jim mentioned, he had a job board. You can do this in Google Maps, you can embed it on your website, and kids can go look and see and actually have the person's contact information. You can let them be their own advocate versus us always having to always be the middleman. Hey, you're in a job, here's my job board, you go get that job. I'll make the connection, you get it. So we like to kind of do things along those lines here as well. Google Sheets. Now I do use Google Sheets. I heard someone say something about Excel earlier. I'm an Excel nerd. So I have a data template for my students' wage tracking. This is an older one, but I can put the student's name in, their release. In Georgia, they have to get a certain number of hours for every block they release. It basically equates to FTE, to HE equivalent. I track their hours. It tells me when the student's done. It tells them where they're working, their total wages for the, to date. It'll give me a spark line based on, are they headed in the right direction based on their total. All these templates, by the way, are free on my website. So this is like, I give this stuff away. You can go get this stuff on my website. It's all free. So people say, well, why do you do that? Why do you keep track of their data? Well, one, I've got to report it to state. We have a database called CTERN we have to report it to. But here's why I use it. Because I told you earlier, I take the data and I share it with my stakeholders. I can put this figure, and this is last year's figure, over $1 million in raw wages earned. If I can show that to my county development authority, I can show that to my chamber of commerce, my mayor, and my county commissioner. Guess whose budget's not on the chopping block when things start getting tight? Mine. Because I can say, look, that's $1 million of raw wages earned. When you factor in, the money circulation formula, you're talking well into the $4 million of total economic impact just from my little program. So now you start to break this down. I can show this data to kids and look, the average student in my program makes over $3,000 a semester. That sounds a lot better to a student than an extra PE class, an extra tennis class, an extra basketball class. So that's how I use that data. I can also come in here and I can break it down and see, just run a real simple query on what my average student salaries are. Again, now we're in South Georgia, so our salaries aren't as big as some people's, in more metro and urban areas, but I still know what it is and where we're going with it. Google Sheets, I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on this. I built this really elaborate spreadsheet that generates my course numbers for me. Georgia's course numbers for work-based learning can be very daunting sometimes. And so I built this where I have to have all this data anyway. I track all this data and it automatically generates the course number for me, which is cool, but it's not the main reason. Over here's the main reason. I can break it down by our placements, seniors, juniors, sophomores, total FTE, percentages of each placement, broken down by a pathway. Because if you've already got all this data as the students apply, and in Georgia, it's a selective, not an elective program. A student can't just say, I want to do work-based learning. They have to apply. We have to go through, vet them, their background, attendance, discipline. Then we can let them in. This is a way for me when I accept them, put them in this program, and it calculates all this data for me. So examples are, my end of the year reports are already pre-generated. So it takes me minutes to do my end of the year reports, where it takes other coordinators in Georgia hours, sometimes days to gather all that data. I can break it down. So kind of similar to how Jim said, I can go in and say, all right, look, I've only got 6 placements in food nutrition, and that's one of our bigger programs. What's going on? Where am I missing these kids? So I have it broken down by category as well. For Google Forms, the biggest thing I've done is I moved my application online. So now students can apply without having to come sit in my office. I have QR codes all over the school. I give the counselors all have my business cards with the QR code on the back of that. Goes to my website so the kids can apply. The form notifies me once it's been submitted. Then I can go in and start processing that. So it allows me again to be multiple places at one time. I can be presenting at a Chamber of Commerce event and I get students who apply. Whereas normally they wouldn't be able to do that without me. So I want to make sure that the program does not revolve around me. The program revolves around itself and I'm just managing it. That's how I wanted to run my program. And these tech tools have allowed me to do that. On the back end of that, once I have the data captured in in Excel, I can run a Google plugin called AutoCrat. And it basically automates everything. It's like think mail merge, but much, much more sophisticated. I can go in and here's just a real quick demo. I'll show you this quickly. When the student applies, this is a template that I created. And I basically just, you build a little document and it says desired semester. And these little tags mean it's going to come in and it's going to pull whatever the student put in their application, it's going to put it here. And so real quickly, it's going to, whatever they put for student name, if they put Mickey Mouse, that's going to say Mickey Mouse. If they misspell their email, they're not going to get the notification, which is another way for me to weed some students out. But I can go in here, I can see their concentrator, their age, the SIP number is, are they special populations? This is the template. So they do the application, they do no other work, just the application. And then what that's going to look like on my end is this. Here's just a dummy application. I want to do it for the spring, 4th block release. I do have transportation, no conflicts. Am I employed? Yes. And I just filled in the rest of the dummy data. It takes my massive application and synthesizes it down into one document. And that does it automatically. Once they apply, it notifies them a summary of their responses. Then it puts them into a spreadsheet. I can go in and say, yes, I accept them, run AutoCrat, and then it will send them this message. Again, it's another form letter. It goes in and it says, congratulations, student name. So it's pulling this from the student's application. You've been accepted in the Lowndes High School Work Learning Program for the following year. Excuse me. This is just the form data. So once I click yes and run AutoCrat, it's going to generate this acceptance letter and send it to the email that they provided. If, however, I need to turn the student down or reject the student for any number of reasons, here's my cancellation letter. And it tells them, student name, I regret to inform you your application for learning has been denied for this reason. Okay, and it's going to pull in whatever I said, whether it's attendance, discipline, they don't have transportation, they're not old enough, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it allows me to automate this quickly and get students' feedback. I noticed when I took the program over, there was a lot of delay and lag in the students being notified, and they tended to lose interest and move on to other programs. I wanted to capture them as soon as they were interested. That letter of acceptance also goes to the guidance counselors, and that's where they schedule it for the students. Tech tools. I got a lot of phone calls, as I'm sure all of y'all did during COVID, about trying to help employers get jobs. Well, a lot of my students were on campus, and the students and the employers couldn't come on campus to recruit. So I just came up with a little QR. I use this website QR code generator to do a Google form of interest. And I would post these outside of my office. And I'd say, hey, lot of interest, Chick-fil-A, Texas Roadhouse, all these people, Scruggs Company, they're hiring. If you're interested in working for them, scan this. They scan it, fill it out. It would notify me. I'd send the back end of that form to the employer. And as long as you notify them, it's not a FERPA violation, that it's going to the employer. And they were able to recruit even while they couldn't come on campus. So that was a wildly successful thing that I was able to do during COVID, and I still use now because, again, it allows me to recruit for multiple people at one time. I don't have to be here for this form to be filled out. We have to keep track of our presentations. I use forms for that. Every time I go do a presentation for a class or teach an employability skill lesson, I put this in my form and my end of the year reports. I just pull this up, add those columns, and that's what I turn in. So very easy for that. Every time I meet with a partner, I can fill this out. When I'm going to do just a general work site evaluation, that's a Google form. I can share that immediately with the student as well. So Google Forms to me, it's again, I'm a nerd, but it really helps me. I can fill out youth apprenticeship tracking surveys this way as well. So that's about enough for forms. I also use a program called Edpuzzle, which when we were meeting virtually, I had a problem getting my students, to go over the content. So if you haven't ever heard of Edpuzzle, you can record a screenshot or any kind of video, upload it, and then stop Edpuzzle. And it'll ask them a question, in multiple choice questions, open-ended questions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what it does is it allows you to basically build in fidelity checks for what you're covering. You can go through and assign a grade to it, and as Edpuzzle grades it, it'll actually drop it right into your LMS, whichever you decide. It drops it right in Google Classroom for me. So again, automated. I make the content, it's grading it, putting it in the classroom for me, good to go. So I am right about my time. I know I went really fast. So the last thing I'll say is when I give you my information, if you have any questions, I'm not doing that like for no reason. Like I'm open to working and helping if you have any questions about those or want to implement those. And also if you'll be in Utah, I have a very detailed presentation on all the Google things that I'm doing. We'll go over those. I'll actually demonstrate some of those in that session. I'll show you some examples in that session. This was just kind of an amuse-bouche for everybody, just kind of get your appetite wet. So at this time, I'm gonna turn it over to whoever's next, or I think we may have questions. Is that right?
Yeah,
Jan,
we'll do questions.
Kelly, okay, there we go. So let me stop sharing and then we'll open up for questions. Thank y'all for your patience. I know I went fast. Please ask questions.
Wow, that was all amazing. I'm so impressed by both of you. There were a lot of questions that came in. I'm going to start with the questions that came in during Jim's presentation. Give me a second so I can find it. So Sue Eaton had asked Jim, do you track the number of students offered competitive employment or additional opportunities?
When you're asking about competitive employment or additional opportunities, are we talking about post-high school graduation?
I'm assuming so, but Sue, feel free to take yourself off mute and clarify your question for him.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm sure that many of the internships turn into opportunities for additional, part-time employment or full-time employment. I'm just wondering, do you track that at all?
Yeah, we do. We have a couple different reasons that we do track that information. So with the Perkins grant funding and concentrators and the work-based learning, we do grab that information for there, as well as the youth apprenticeship grad ask for that information. So yeah, we do get that on the back end with our final paperwork when we send that out.
Another question that came in for you, Jim, by Sue also. She was wondering if your setup was based on a specific platform or did you develop that system internally?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. I just got it off. So I use the Qualtrics platform. And so everything that Jason's doing, like 90% of it, I'm doing the same. But I use this Qualtrics platform to create my dashboards, and then this houses all my database information. Our district invested in this tool for surveys and other purposes. And we have a programmer in district that I started working with when I took over, and she goes, Jim, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And so we started really utilizing this tool and pushing the envelope and creating things through Qualtrics. But it is a very pricey platform. I think our district pays $20,000 a year for this. It was, again, not brought in for work-based learning. It was brought in for other things at district level, but all employees in the district have access. So I've just utilized the tool that our district has had. The stuff that Jason's using sounds like it's free, and it does a lot of the same stuff that we're doing. Mine's just housed in one place because my district pays for it.
And I have a third question, which is on here, but I want to make sure that it was meant for you, Jim. The employers that you're working with, because you're connecting students with those employers, are they vetted in any way, or do you only work with employers that have like criminal background check policies?
So a couple things with the people that we are vetting. So we have pulled an LLC list of all LLCs in a 12-mile radius of the Muskego Norway School District. So actually, Jason, credit to you. I think 2 years ago at the Work-Based Learning Conference, the Google Maps idea, I started mapping out who I've been working with to show just my improvement over the years, to talk to my school board, look at our growth, look how this looks on a map. But then I pulled the database of the LLCs, and I think I have over 300 contacts that I currently work with on my Google map. When I paid for an LLC map, we have over 6,000 LLCs in our area. So we are currently vetting and targeting those 6,000 business partners as we work through them. And then, and actually, when you talk about the vetting, I'm gonna just share my screen one more time here. So for us, we have a digital job board, and we're doing this in partnership, just like Jason, we're doing a lot of the same stuff here. We're doing this in partnership with the McGuanago School District, which is in our backyard, mirror communities, but we are guiding all our employers to post their job here. And then they just go in and they create an account and set it up. Every time a job is posted in here, I get an automatic email. So then I can open it up, see who the job is, where the posting is. So I can just verify that it's not a pedophile posting a job to try to attract someone, that it's a legitimate business in our backyard. But again, just like Jason, we're cutting the middleman out. Our Work-Based Learning Connect Academy needs to exist without Jim Nicklig. And our employers, our students, our families, our community can all go here, post jobs, look at jobs, apply for jobs without me. But I do get that email just to verify that it is a legitimate business placement.
You guys are doing some pretty amazing things. Just in awe. Just in general. Brianne Lynch had asked a couple questions, and this was actually during Jason's presentation. She said, post-secondary has made Handshake the platform. Do you think your learners' use of LinkedIn will help them transition to that platform? She did have a second question. I'm just going to put it out there so you can answer them both. She said, do you have any concerns with data and student privacy with your tracking tools?
Regarding LinkedIn, I don't have a lot of concerns. If parents are concerned about that, I can put them in a closed group. And then if that's the case, then I will forego the posts where they thank their employer, that my built-in marketing piece. But what I can do is put them in a closed group and have them make a post in that closed group of their skill, using hashtags to identify their skill set. And then when a student or an employer reaches out to me and says, hey, look, I'm looking for a welder, I can give them temporary access to that closed group. They can search that closed group for text. And again, all this credit idea goes back to Mike Hassel. He's shared this with me, and it's been really cool to use. They can search the whole closed group, all my students that year, for anyone who has skills in welding, and then they can reach out to them and go and do that back and forth. I would not give access to someone to that closed group unless I knew who they were, unless I've worked with them before, unless we had got them embedded. Regarding moving to Handshake, I don't know. Most of my students are not post-secondary bound. Most of my students are going directly into the skilled trades. So because of that, my main focus and thrust of doing this was getting their skill sets on display in front of the most qualified employers possible, and LinkedIn allows me to do that. If it works with Handshake, then that would be a sweet little bonus. But that was not my intent, because again, the majority of my kids are going to be working in skilled trades. And as far as I know, our local technical college system has not adopted Handshake. If they have, then that may change. My thoughts may evolve on that if TCSG embraces Handshake.
The other question was about data tracking student information, and do you have any concerns around? Brianne, if you want to clarify that question, feel free.
Yeah, thanks. Just in our district, we've had a lot of hesitation with student data, and rightfully so. And so it's been we've had our student email addresses hacked, and then there's been some, unsightly things sent through those platforms and through our district email service. So anytime we want to use a tech tool, the vetting process is pretty extensive. And so I've personally agree. I love the LinkedIn model, and I've used that a little bit in the past with our work-based learning and our youth apprenticeship and internship program. And I got the plug pulled on me this year. So we are no longer allowed to use LinkedIn in our program. So that was just my question in general about just student data. And if you had anything you could shoot me kind of as like, here's how I am working inside of the FERPA laws, and maybe I can sweet talk my tech coordinators a little bit.
Yeah.
But Jason, I would say a lot of that data, your information. You're not sharing it with your outside entities.
Correct.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm sharing of student data is through LinkedIn. Everything else is just for me, or it's been stripped of any personal identifier. So I may use their information to culminate my total wage salary for the year, my wage progression over the past 3 years, but that's stripped of personal identifiers. But I think, so I'm sorry, my heart, like when you said that, Ms. Lynch, my heart broke. It makes me sad that that they pulled that plug. That's such a robust tool. I think it's kind of a catch-22. So I don't know that I have an answer for that, but I would say if they're coming into your program and they're asking you to help get them a job and help facilitate their career growth, then they need to be willing to share some of their data. And that's what I ask my students to do when they come to my program. So look, I use LinkedIn. If that's a no-go, then you may need to go find to another program, because it's better for the kid, better for me. Of course, we get the parents on board, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's kind of, it's oxymoronic to ask them, for them to ask me, hey, leverage your network to get me a really robust job placement. Oh, by the way, don't share my information. That's impossible. So I would leverage that. And again, I mentioned his name a lot already. Reach out to Mike Hassler. He has a really robust system that he's put in place for getting parent approval. And he's even said the parents who initially objected, once they sat down and had a meeting, they were always there. Every one of them were all on board. Okay, I see what you're doing this for now. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Utah has leverage that across the state, right? Isn't that tied to y'all's funding, Mike? So the whole state of Utah is adopted using LinkedIn. That's pretty powerful. Go to your stakeholders and say, look, this is not like just this one-off. Like the whole entire state of Utah has adopted this. We're being left behind. Yeah.
Jason, and I just want to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying too. And just Jason had a very similar slide or he put up there. But again, you're stripping the data of what the students are. It's just the numbers on how much money, what's being said. So like the personal information is what's kept to you. But at the same point in time, one of the questions I always ask myself is what's the return on investment for our business partners? So why are they going to work with us? Why are they posting their jobs on my job board? And at the end of the day, the return on investment for them is that they have a quality employee that can continue to help their company make money. And so I need to tell that story that my students are the best quality employee that you're going to have. And if I can't tell that story, we're not going to build the program and grow the numbers. And
100%.
Yeah. And then the other thing too, as you start to look at it, the number one way you find jobs in this world, whether you like it or not, is through word of mouth and networking. So if we're hiding our students behind closed doors, how are they getting out there and networking with business professionals to open up those doors for next steps? So I would definitely challenge the thought process that you can't use these digital tools, that you can't collect that data, because you're shutting doors on your students and you're shutting doors on your business partners.
Yeah. And if you really begin to leverage what Jim just said, like work-based learning, what it really does is it opens up your school to a lot of CTAE or CTE labs that you don't have to fund through Perkins. Yeah. I don't have to put in $250,000 or $500,000 automotive lab. I can actually take my students, put them at the automotive industry who's already paid for that. And that now becomes a school-based placement and I'm using their equipment. It's Perkins free. We can't do that unless we leverage what Jim said, talent retention, building talent pipelines. You build the talent pipeline to that industry. And then you say, look, stakeholders, I can't do this without a little bit of the student data. And here's the benefits. Now we have people who are knocking our door down to get involved, to employ our students. Our students are getting, more and more, a higher percentage job placement from our CTA programs, which gives you more clout in the community. It starts with work-based learning. Obviously, that's what I do for a living, so I may be a little biased, but it starts with us taking those kids from our talented instructional programs and getting them placed. We're the capstone to every pathway every school has. That's what we do. So I would encourage you, fight that fight. I would.
Yeah. Jason, I think we can go back and forth on this, but the other thing is that it increases the level of opportunities your students will have success with. So here in Wisconsin, Milwaukee Tools corporate headquarters is right here in my backyard. Impro, which is Worldwide Business Partners, right here in my backyard. In the job opportunities from basic laborer in their manufacturing floor has increased and opened up opportunities for my engineers, my financing, accounting people, to my marketing people, and because I can tell our story. So yeah, I'm with Jason. Just challenge it to keep trying to grow.
Step in here. This is such a great conversation that can definitely be extended into April's Work-Based Learning Conference. So hopefully those of you who have more questions and want to speak further with our panelists, and also since Mike's name was brought up, Mike will be there, I'm sure you have that opportunity. But right now I want to hand it over very quickly to Kelly Beamer, Director of Membership for ACTE, to wrap us up.
Thank you so much. Wow, I just can't get enough of hearing about, work-based learning. And of course, that was my some of my roots as well. So thank you all for participating in this webinar today, and thank you to the presenters. What I also want to say is, now that I've changed positions from work-based learning to Director of Membership, just want to remind everybody that if you're not a member of ACTE, it's really easy to do. And in fact, in many cases, you can save as much with going to conferences because of the member discount as you get for being a member. So, take a look at all the benefits, the Techniques magazine, all the different benefits that you get for being a member. And if you have any questions, please reach out, because we are now going to have a seat at the table. We are now going to be at the ACT board of directors, and it's because of people like you that have stepped up to become members of ACTE. So again, contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Kelly. I'm so excited if we can maintain at least 750 members for the work-based learning section by the end of June, then we can become an official division, which is very exciting. If you're interested in any other upcoming professional development opportunities, ACTE has several webinars. You can go to acteonline.org/webinars to register. And then of course our conference is coming up. You have all of our contact information, the presenters, as well as me and Kelly. Feel free to reach out to us. And thank you to our panelists, and thank you so much to our audience for being here and participating. These are great conversations, and I can't wait to continue. So thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.